I don't see why people are so shocked by it, because, like, everyone does it.
It's a bit petty from Bordeaux. I'm like, come on, guys.
When you win a game, you can do what you want. And yes, it's a bit distasteful, but they've won. They don't care. And fair play to them.
This is For the Love of European Rugby, presented by JQ.
Yes, JQ are the official automotive partner of the Investec Champions Cup and the EPCR Challenge Cup.
And maybe the World Club Cup in 2028. More on that later.
Ben, we've had a weekend of 2 European finals. The atmosphere in Cardiff looked brilliant. We've had 2, I think, fantastic games. Tries scored, big hits, yellow cards, controversy, great skill level. We've had, 2 teams going at each other, 4 teams going at each other. How have you found it?
Coley, I really enjoyed the European weekend, to be fair, mate. Some cracking games. And yeah, let's start with Northampton, Bordeaux. Bordeaux, of course, won in the end 28 points to 20. Cardiff, the atmosphere looked absolute quality, to be fair. What a stadium to play. Saints got off to a flying start, but as a whole, the game, we'll touch on it a lot, but the game was quite stop-start. It was disruptive for Saints with obviously the injuries and things, and certain personnel going off, like the TMO coming in. A lot of tries were disallowed for both teams. So almost broke the flow as such, and almost, because the game was a bit stop-start, I almost feel like that served Bordeaux better, given their size, their power, and the way they kind of want to play the game, than maybe Northampton, that would have rather have tried to create more fatigue in Bordeaux's legs. And I think the stop-start nature of it kind of always allowed Bordeaux to recover and then hit the next thing. But in terms of starts, like, you couldn't get off to a better start for Northampton. And Alex Coles, what a try, mate. Kind of like, he almost goes it through his legs and places the ball down. But it was a dream start for Saints. And like, when you get like that, Cole, as well, it just settles everyone down, because at the end of the day, it is a huge pressure cooker of a game. And when you score early, it does just kind of, right, we're into it.
Yes, Ben, I think it was the perfect start for Saints. I think the fact that they kicked off and then were able to recover the kickoff, and then, a minute and 40 seconds later, you basically go and score. It's ideal start to a final. Obviously, it didn't work out the way they wanted, but you can't think of a better start. I think that puts Bordeaux on the back foot. But credit to Bordeaux, they turned it around. Well, turned it around within, they kicked off and got back into their game plan. I think they weren't flustered. They showed their quality in the fact they weren't flustered, and they basically just went down the other end and then got into their game plan and played the game they did. So you said it was stop-start. I think that probably suited Bordeaux. I'll have my little rant now. I actually thought the referee, fair play, there was a lot of TMO interjections, but some of them weren't lengthy. A lot of them would say like a knock-on or something, and then finally want to get the results right. Because on the big screen, the referee, credit to him, he wasn't like ignoring it. He just went, yep, I got that wrong. I think it was a knock-on in the second half from Penno and that kind of stuff, and all those kind of high tackles and stuff. He dealt with them fairly quickly. He was consistent in what his application was. And I think, the referee, for me, he wasn't a massive talking point, because the stuff he got wrong, he corrected. And the TMOs are fairly quick. I will say this, I had to turn the commentary off at one point, because it was basically just banging on about stuff that happened 2 hours ago in the game, and this and the other, and it's like, actually just concentrate on what's happening now. But apart from that, yeah, I thought the final was, it was probably a fair reflection on the 2 strengths of the team. I think Northampton were probably looking to strike from, a bit like against Leinster, where they looked to strike from turnover or opportunities. Like Pollock had 2 tries to pull back, one for being offside and one for a move around the front, which I hope to get into, which I think probably them against Leinster, they pulled off, and that makes it closer. I think Bordeaux will be frustrated, because I think they basically were on top, the power game. The hooker drops the ball over the line on a maul. He then gets tackled and throws it randomly and intercept a yard from the goal line after a maul. Another maul gets held above the line. Everyone said that's great rear guard action from Saints. Yeah, it is. But if you're Bordeaux, you're probably thinking, we need to score one of it. Like, they'd be disappointed. If you're Bordeaux, you're frustrated you haven't scored one of those, because that would just make the scoreboard move further in front and that kind of stuff. Similar with the LBB try that got pulled back for a forward pass. You kind of like, there's just, and that's finals. You get it. It's fair enough. But like, Bordeaux is probably on the balance. Yes, credit to Northampton. They stuck in it, and it's a mighty task. I mean, we've played Bordeaux. They're a brilliant team. They're stacked full of internationals. And they stuck at the game. But, I think the result, the fairness balance, probably shows that Bordeaux were the better team. And I think as well, their big players stood up. Your Lukus, your Jalibers, your LBBs, they stepped up to the game and probably won those individual matchups, which we've spoken about before.
I want to also ask, Cole. There's a bit around. There's been some chat around Pollock post game, and there's a quote from Finn Smith, so I'll just read it out now. They were after him. I don't think they liked him. He'll be all right. I remember they all sort of charged at him and tried to get hold of him. If you've just won a European Cup, I'm surprised if the first thing you don't want to do is start a fight with a 20-year-old. I felt that was interesting.
Yeah, well, I saw there was a bit of argy-bargy at the end of the game.
It was, wasn't
and
it?
sort of Bordeaux celebrations. But I think I see both sides of it. I think if you're going into a final, right, and you're, say, Bordeaux, you don't need motivation, but sometimes I think you find, this time it's Pollock, because Pollock's out there in the media, he says things, he's the, he does a lot of interviews, he's out there and he enjoys it. And every conversation, every question about him is about him, which he's been picked for the Lions, he's that kind of stuff. So, rightly or wrongly, he's been put as probably the face of this Northampton team for this time being. And if you're Bordeaux, and I think we've done it as players ourselves, is you find a way of making a guy the enemy or a reason to hate him. You don't even know the bloke. We've done it ourselves, England, Wales, all these kind of things. You find blokes that you don't like.
You create a narrative, don't you?
You create a narrative in your head and in your team that they don't think, they don't respect you. I think Salibert said something that they said they're all mercenaries and that kind of stuff. And it might be like a clip from, I don't know, a YouTube video. It might be like one quote that it might even be taken out of context, but you don't care because you make that narrative in your head that they think they're better than you, and it builds a bit of hatred, builds a bit of tension in the team, and you just go after one person, and that's him. And I don't think you just go after one person, you go after the whole lot. But at the same time, Pollock's it's respectful, because in some regards, Pollock's a really good player. Bordeaux obviously recognised that, and they thought a 20-year-old will test him in a final, and if we can get the, if we can throw him off his game, which, I'd say he didn't have his best of games, then it can help you win the final. And, Finn Smith's comments, yeah, I get that, but it doesn't matter if he's 20 years old, he's 38 years old, you go after these people because that's the target you've made in your head, rightly or wrongly. And also, it's for Saints to then, or Saints in this case, but your team, if you see one of your guys getting targeted, it's for you to step up and rally around him and defend him and make sure that you go after them and turn it on its head. So, yeah, I think, there's a lot of narrative. I see on the front of one of the rugby papers, it's kind of like, oh, they don't mention the game and how good the game was. It's all about the kicking off afterwards and how he's targeted. And it's like, that's probably part of the problem in regards to, because it's all about one player, the opposition see it. And right, I'm not saying, that's not Henry Pollock's fault that he's on the front of the paper for being targeted, but because the media makes all about one player, the opposition go, it's all about him, let's go after him. And that's going to happen in his career. And it's respect to him because he's a very good player and other teams see that. And it's something he's have to get used to in his game and his career. And something Saints will have to, the guys around will have to sort out. And, but I don't see why it's a massive talk. I've talked about it for 20 minutes. I don't see why it's a massive talking point from the game. And B, I don't see why people are so shocked by it because, everyone does it.
I think it's they clearly went after him, and it's a sign of respect in many ways. If you're a key player, they're going to go after you. I mean, I just suddenly thought actually of an example. Can you remember Alan Wynne-Jones and 2019? It was a Six Nations game, Wales away, and he spent the entire game sort of getting under Carl Sinclair's skin, really sort of winding him up. And Sinks gave some penalties away, and the first person to stand next to him when he gave away a pen was Alan Wynne-Jones, just chirping away at him, giving him a shove, the next time. And it just kind of, players do it, and it's players will do aggravate, annoy, wind up, do everything they can to certain people because they know if they can get reaction. And Pollock's come across as a larger than life character. I don't know him, but he's out there, he's busy, he's celebrating, he's this and that. So teams are going to try and distract him from his game or bring him into that part of the game to stop him from doing all the other brilliant bits, So I guess for him, it's just an example. He's very much burst onto the scene, and people are becoming more and more aware of him, and people will try and oppositions will try and create narratives, try and create things that allow them to kind of build up this sort of narrative that allows them to kind of go after him. Obviously in Australia, when he goes to tour there with the Lions, mate, the Aussies, you know what the Aussies are like, Cole. We've played against them loads, mate, and the sledging and the way they are, even the crowd and the fans and what they're like and the players, mate. So it's, for him, it's just, it's a lesson, isn't it?
Do you remember 2016? England went on tour to Australia. I think second test it was right, getting to Fibs. their 9, get into Nick Phibbs because he loses his head, he'll do this. And basically, I remember I got my shirt stripped off me, but it was like we literally just went after one player, and that kind of, not say that's how we won the game, but you do these things, and Bordeaux will do that. And I'm pretty sure it was just probably an easier target because he's out there in the media and that kind of stuff. And again, that's the thing. And it's similar, we've played in teams where you go after certain players. Marler, pretty sure, spent his entire career trying to wind up opposition. And when we played him early in his career, it's like go after him. And you know what I mean? So it's all it's just part of the game. And yes, some people don't like it, but if it helps you win the game, then you do it 9 times out of 10, wouldn't you?
No, absolutely, Coley. But the one thing I would say is there seems to have, after the game and the post-match photos and everything like that, it seems to have kind of carried on. And I think at that stage, it's like, yeah, you build up the week, you play your game, you do what you need to do to win. But then post that, it's like, I'm not sure you need the other bits with some of the photos and everything like that. That's a little bit, I'd say petty is the word.
Yeah.
Springs to mind. It's a bit petty from Bordeaux. I'm like, come on, guys. You want to be better than that.
Having seen it, having seen some of the pictures, A, context is king and you need to know the context, but B, at some point you win the game, take the high road. You don't have to, you've done what you've done on the field, but pictures are a bit, again, naff. But again, you don't know the context. There might have been a million photos and they've done the celebration twice, whatever it is, or, I think, and basically took the piss twice, and they're the ones that obviously the media put out there, which, again, you question why do it in the first place, but you don't see all the other photos, and you know what I mean? So it's one of those things, yes. And I'm sure, Bordeaux used it. Ultimately, Bordeaux won the game. Whether they use that as motivation or not, they won the game. And some regards, when you win a game, you can do what you want. And yes, it's a bit distasteful, but they've won. They don't care. And fair play to them.
In the famous words of Richard Cockrell, it is what it is. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off. 2020 at half-time. So what did Bordeaux do in the second half? Or do they get right?
I think the power game probably took over. I think territory. I think Bordeaux was able to kick the ball down the end of the field through Luku and his ginormous boot, which made obviously Freeman have to run it back, or play into edge to LBB. Penno happily just roll the ball in behind and put pressure there. I think the power game, I thought you saw Mofana and blokes like that carrying and being direct and just getting across the gain line. I think Big Ben Tamiafuna came on. He dented the line for 10 minutes. Kind of maybe blew out after that, but they just say got that thing, and then,
but he had some big impacts.
Oh, massive impacts! But with that, with the momentum they gained, just winning gain line collisions. I think at one point Mofana ran over Pollock, and got sort of in behind 10 minutes, then got in behind, and Saints have to give away a penalty, which then allowed Bordeaux to kick it to the corner, and which allowed them to maul. And as I said before, that Bordeaux would be frustrated because they had 3 mauls, which they probably thought they should have scored, but didn't. It's just, but those mauls, it's time spent in the opposition 22. It's time when Northampton don't have the ball, so they can't score, and it just takes time out of the clock. And when you sort of, in those finals, sometimes you're playing, yes, you're playing the scoreboard, but you're also playing against the clock in regards to if you have the lead, then you need to slow the game down and drag it out. And I think Bordeaux did that really well in the second half. I think, Northampton were looking for, I think field position, Bordeaux managed really well. Collisions, they were winning. And, Northampton were reliant upon probably those long-range strike plays, which, unfortunately, this week didn't work. With Leinster, they did, but I think, they got pulled back, whatever, this week. So that's probably the difference in the teams.
The mauling, Coley, just on that, does it drain your legs more defending the maul or attacking in the maul?
It's more defensively, because in an ideal world, you defend it as a sort of a collective, but often you are, there might be, say, Bordeaux mauling with 8 guys in a tight, compact unit, and you've got 4 or 5 of yours who are sort of hitting it as individuals, trying to take on a whole slab of Bordeaux meat by yourselves. So it is draining. I think also there's the relentless, with maul defence, for instance, it's very much, a lot of it is done on the first sort of 3 seconds, the first impact. And if you're a defending team and you've been sort of pushed over the line and you're up against it, you know that. And so you're kind of trying to get everything right. And sometimes you're in a maul and the first second goes against you, like Bordeaux win the line or they're really tight and you're like, they're going to score here, even if, and that's 10, 15 seconds where you're basically digging as hard as you can to try and make it as difficult as possible. It's draining. And, the relentless nature, Bordeaux are going to go to it again and again and again. You have to get everything right to stop it. And so it's that mentally taxing thing, and also so physically it's good. But alternatively, if you do turn them over like Saints do, it's such a massive boost because yes, actually mauling in attack is tough. It is uncomfortable being bent over and pushing, driving and stuff like that. So it is tough, but it's the psychological advantage, I think, probably more than the physical one. And that's Northampton actually won they turned them over 3 times on the goal line, which is a massive boost to them. But at the same time, from Northampton, you're still exiting, you're still inside your own half, you know what's coming again. And Bordeaux, they'll be frustrated, but they know that if they get another chance, they'll kick it to the corner and they'll go again. And it's just, you have to get everything right to defend it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing really, isn't it, Coley? Like, that's what I was wondering, because it felt like that Bordeaux power just sort of was there, and it's draining to defend. And Saints did a really good job of holding them out. Yes, the hooker dropped one over the line and things like that. And if you're Bordeaux, you're thinking, we can't keep squandering these chances. But on another day, they could have been slightly more out in front. And then Northampton have to play a bit more. They overchase the game. They give you another opportunity because Penno picks up an intercept, or the ball gets dropped. They fly hack it. They score. And I almost feel like it didn't necessarily, the scoreline necessarily reflect in the end that sort of the amount of time that Bordeaux kind of had time in their 22, building pressure, draining their legs, and sort of taking them to a place which is incredibly hard.
Well, you think about it, you combine the slow grind of a maul combined with then sort of the long ball in play, all those kick sprints where, say, Freeman kicks it 50 metres downfield or Luku bangs it back 60 metres. Like, as a forward, you've got to come out of that maul, which fills your leg full of lactate acid, like you're heavy breathing, your heart's pounding, and then you've got to run. So if you think about running with lactate in your legs, and then you've got to sort of not only run, but you've got to sprint up the field, especially if, say, those 22, so the goal line dropouts and stuff like that, is you then got to get upfield. You've got a guy running back. You've got to think about getting in the right position to tackle him, presenting a line. You know that if you miss it, you're in those big stake games, like high stakes games. If you don't sprint in your defensive line, LBB is going to find you, step you, and probably score, and you're going to be the reason you lose the final. So there's all those bits and bobs where you have to, defend your goal line. It's physically tiring, but it's also you have to stay mentally engaged, and that, say, eventually sort of takes its toll. The best players keep going through it. It's that armour, so you have to stay through. But at some point you have to get out your half, and you have to sort of put pressure on the opposition and almost relieve pressure from your own defence and your own physical side of things, especially with a team like Bordeaux that, a lot of their carries are route one, they're direct, they're big, they're carrying hard, and it takes its toll. And so, it's sort of, Bordeaux were dictating the pace of the game. What I will say, I haven't mentioned so far, I thought Jalibert was outstanding. I thought some of this, just what I'll credit him is, yes, he does a lot of flash stuff in regards to like his stepping and that kind of and ball play, but he gets stuck in, and there was a couple of times he's trying to jackal and he's winning balls on the floor. I think sometimes in Bordeaux, there's one try where Penno scores it, where so the Jalibert kicks it through, it's a bad thing, ricochets, but he's straight in there, diving on the ball, winning it back, ripping it out and throwing it. So it's like, credit to him. The 10 was doing the dirty work at times, and that's something which I appreciate. Yeah,
Luku and Jalibert actually controlled matters really, really well. And you actually look at Bordeaux, I reckon they kicked well over 1,000 metres. So for people listening to this, that won't mean too much to you. But most teams, if you tend to kick over 1,000 metres, it gives you a better chance of sort of winning the game. And I thought the way that they just, the territory and the way they kind of managed things and then moved the ball when they needed to and sped it up and did all that stuff, I thought actually as a pairing, they were very impressive. Let's talk about, though, the injuries early on. We wish George Furbank a speedy recovery because, poor bless him, he's had a tough season with injuries, and not nice to see. That was a nasty sort of knee that caught him there and KO'd him. Obviously, Ram went off as well, but like having to rejig that back three so early on a game when you know that you're going to be up against it back into the game and I suppose the bench that they can bring on, you kind of having to force your hand so early. And it does have a massive effect, as an effect psychologically, because you're watching two really good players go off. That doesn't help. Not that you don't trust the guys coming on, but Furbank is a fine player. So he goes off. He's also been Northampton's captain, so all that leadership qualities and everything like that. The other aspect of it is just your general like shapes and phase plays, and obviously from strikes. So from line out, from scrum, you have these set patterns and things like that. And then having to rejig everyone around, that does have an effect. So it's just really unfortunate for Northampton to lose two guys like that so early on, having to reel out the changes, then having to put people like Tommy Freeman fullback and rejig things. like that does have effect, psychologically, but equally to your playbook, to your menu and what you can actually play and the strikes and everything like that, and re-triggering that. They actually did a really good job of actually doing it, to be fair. I mean, the try just on the stroke of half time is such a well-ran move, and the way that they manipulate the space and come back on the short side, like such a great try. And it was they needed it at that point, Northampton did. So I almost credit to them, but it is a massive kick in the nuts to them, losing 2 quality players so early on against a team like Bordeaux, where they're going to empty their bench.
Losing Furbank as well as that second distributor in that. I know Dingwall, everyone can distribute, but Furbank in the Northampton system, when Finn Smith gets sort of in a breakdown, whatever it is, or carries, Furbank can play 10, he can rip it down a short side. You do lose, Furbank's a great secondary football, second playmaker in that back line that will take space on an edge, will just keep defences moving and guessing. And I'm not saying it, I'm not saying it hurt Northampton. I'm not saying it's the reason they lost. I'm not saying that at all. But, it definitely just takes us 5% off the team, which in those big games counts.
Coley, we should probably mention, though, what an achievement it is to Saints to get to the final. Of course, they want to go on and win it. But when you actually look at how hard that is to do, the quality within the European Cup, and for Northampton to get to the final, and it will almost feel like, oh, we've come so close and everything like that. But when you actually step back and you look at their run and the run they put together and how hard it is for English teams, as we spoke about earlier on the show, and the depth of other teams, and maybe they don't have the same, which a lot of clubs don't. But to do that, Bath obviously won on Friday night, but they won on the back of dropping into that, having not got out of their pool, in the European Cup, and they're top of the Prem. They won on Friday night, but they didn't actually even make out of their pool. So it's an incredibly hard competition to go and win.
It'll hurt Northampton because you get to a final and you are desperate to win. It's your one chance to say it could be 10 years till the next one. It might be next year. You never know. But it's so hard to get to a final. We've never done it. And not many English teams have. So you'll have a missed opportunity. But at the same time, the Saints, you sort of take a step back and look at it. You're like, well, you've beaten Leinster. You've lost to Bordeaux, who are the best team in Europe, and France by 8 points. And you've given everything. You've lost 2 really good players early doors in the game. You've had yellow cards. You've had everything. But you've actually, to get to the final, I say you've gone to Dublin and won. You've beaten Clermont. You've beaten other sort of French teams in the knockouts. You got through your group. Like, there's so much good, and the result shouldn't sort of the final. Yes, it will overshadow how everything else has gone because it hurts because you lost, but you can take a lot of pride from, no, this is me talking to Northampton, but it's a bit like, say, we lost in 2019, like you lose the final, but you actually, and it really hurts and it stings and you still think, oh, we should win the final, etc. But you take a step back and you look back and actually the process of getting there, you overcame so much, you came together as a team and you can be proud of that, and that almost, it doesn't replace winning the final, but actually the fact you've done it gives you so much validation that you're doing the right things, you're with the right bunch of people. And so, yeah, it's bittersweet, but at the same time, I think, in years to come, you'd hope those Saints guys look back and go, actually, no other English team did it, did they? At least we fucking went and had a go.
And what about for the guys, obviously got the Lions tours ahead, their season is essentially over, for Northampton. They've got 1 game left. But how do they sort of manage that? Do you reckon they try and get away for a holiday before they kind of have, because the Lions tour is such a long tour, and you almost come back from that, you get your sort of time off's condensed, you then come back and you're straight into a couple of weeks pre-season, then pre-season friendlies, and then before you know it, the league starts. The Lions year always, on the back of it, is a very, very difficult following season. A lot of players struggle. They talk about, the Lions hangover. It could be injuries, could be form, and all these different things. So, like, how do those guys, do you reckon, manage the next sort of couple of weeks before they meet up with the Lions?
Well, it'll be interesting. Obviously, we've got 1 more round of the Premiership to play. It'll be interesting to see if what Phil Dowson, if he plays them or not, decides actually, Europe's such a big thing. The Premiership is, I know there's a bit to play for, but actually, do you sort of just rest those guys because emotional come down to play in the final? It's going to be tough. But then, yeah, if you're a player there, I guess you might go on holiday for a few days or, maybe a week, but say you've probably got a month before you meet up. I think the Lions might have mini camps beforehand, so you can't let yourself go too much. And then you sort of probably if they don't, you're into mini pre-season, you'll be at the club, you'll be lifting, you'll be running, you'll be doing your sort of skills work, because you've got to keep yourself sharp, because, I mean, it's the one opportunity of a lifetime in some regards for these guys. So they want to go into it as sharp as possible. And that's probably one advantage, selfishly. It works both ways. If you're playing in finals, that's the best thing, brilliant. But at the same time, if you're not, you've actually got a period of probably 4 weeks where you can get your body right, and then you can go into that Lions tour fresh and I'm not going to say invigorated, but you know what I mean? Like, you're excited to be there, and because you had a bit of a break and you can hit the ground running. So it's, they can use it as those guys can use it to their advantage in some regards, the pain of losing, because they can get a run into the Lions and they can look after themselves and make sure that Australia's as good as possible. And after that, you deal with whatever.
Yeah, because the other teams, let's say that obviously got the Prem knockouts to come, you obviously got finals to come, URC's the same, those games are like thick and fast. Every game becomes a knockout. That actually, the time you meet up for tour, yes, you're match sharp and everything like that, but you've also had a lot of cognitive and physical load in almost that month of rugby when you meet up. Whereas someone like Northampton players and other players that don't now necessarily going to have those knockout games anymore, is cognitively you're allowed to freshen up, and physically, as you say, Coley, but then you haven't necessarily got the match sharpness. So yeah, it's just quite interesting. By the time that the Lions do meet up, you're going to have various players at very different stages of where they're at.
You talk about cognitive load. Yeah, it's quite interesting, because you go all season in the Premiership or the URC, you've been peaky, you want to peak for a final, physically, mentally, everything, and that's kind of like, you perceive it as the end of your season, and then if you are in a Premiership final, then you've got 6 days to meet up. Well, you literally probably meet up the next day. You probably play Saturday, then Sunday you'll meet up the Lions, and you've got 6 days till the Friday night game. You might not play in that one for the Lions. Some guys do, but it's, you sort of prepare yourself to mentally peak there, and then you've instantly got to go again, which will be, I would say, what's coming. It won't be too much of a challenge, because you're around like-minded individuals who are best of their game and just excited to go. But yeah, it's something that you probably have to be aware of as a player, that your season peaks, but then as a team you're physically prepared stuff, but then as an individual you've got to go on and rejoin another team. So it's something to think about.
We had the weekend off, Coley, which was lovely. I was at a wedding, terrific day, absolutely loved it. What did you get up to, mate?
I have been hanging out with my boys. We may have eaten some cake and lots of meat and done what men do. But yeah, no, I've had a relaxed weekend. It's been quite busy overall, with our schedules and rugby and stuff. To get a weekend off is a bit of a, I say it's not strange, but yeah, it's just quite a nice, slow-paced life. How was your wedding? What time did it start? What were you wearing? What time did you finish? How much did you drink between the start and the finish of the day?
Well, first of all, we're in morning suits, and having just moved house, I couldn't find it. So there was a bit of a mad panic as I was trying to relocate where it might be. I knew it was packed up somewhere. So I was ripping open boxes Saturday morning trying to find it. Anyway, I managed to find it. It was a little bit creased, having been in a bottom of a box, but all good. It just about still fitted me, Coley. It was the same one I wore on my wedding day. And I've got to say, mate, you would have laughed, because it was snug. It was a snug fit. But that's the wake-up call I needed. So if anything, I'm grateful for that. So got the wake-up call I needed, just about squeezed in it.
I'm going to laugh because actually it's a Lions year, and you went to the Lions in Australia in 2013, didn't you?
I did.
And I remember going to a wedding in that off-season, and Tom Crofter's like a gift had bought you a present. The present was like a suit, but it was like a pinstripe suit.
Yeah, it was,
and
yeah.
You, I think, had been on an all-you-can-eat buffet for 2 weeks, and you may or may not have been 100 kilos at the time, but I remember seeing you, and you looked like a mafia don. You were sat in this seat with this pinstripe suit, this 3-piece pinstripe suit. Your chin may or may not have been like over the top of the suit. Heavy breathing, just sat in a chair, refusing to move. Yeah, you were.
I did look like a big mafia don. I don't know where that pinstripe suit is. I might have to whip it out and just wear it in the studio.
Yeah,
just for a day. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that, Coley. That was great.
Capone.
Yeah. So Thanks for triggering the memory. I'm going to have to find that up. There's got to be a photo of me in it somewhere. Well remembered. So yeah, it was as tight as that one was, mate. That's how I look. But a great day, and the buttons didn't ping. They lasted the night, even after the post cheese board at midnight.
Nice. A good day. It's always good when a cheese board comes out. I remember one wedding, I actually think it was our new head coach, Jeff Parling, basically just shoved cheese in my best mate's face, and I had to get a taxi back with him, and he stunk the entire way back from Cambridge.
Just reeking.
Yeah, it actually put me off cheese for all of a day. But yeah, he stunk. Anyway, yeah, weddings, a lot of fun.
They are, but the aftermath of a wedding is like, yeah, I'm feeling it a little bit today, Coley, I'm not going to lie.
Speaking of cheese, Ben, I've been thinking about doing a European tour of cheese, and basically it's my long-winded way of saying that our friends at JQ, who are the official automotive partner of the Investec Champions Cup and the EPCR Challenge Cup, have made a mobile game where you can win tickets for next year's final in Bilbao.
We'll put a link in our episode description. Shall we go to Bilbao next year, Coley?
Yeah, I think we should drive to Bilbao. I've been putting options together because, of course, the JQ7 is equipped with groundbreaking super hybrid system, which, with a full tank of fuel and a fully charged battery, can provide us with about 745 miles of driving range, and it's room and reliable. So it offers plenty of space for all our luggage and cheese that we're going to buy in Spain and France. Itinerary-wise, I've put together two options. One is option A, which is Bilbao is 959 miles from Leicester if we go through France. So we might have to refill once. And option B, we can get the ferry from Portsmouth to Bilbao, but Portsmouth's only 163 miles from Leicester, so the return trip will be 326, meaning we'll have loads of miles. We could do it twice, and we'll still have range left to explore Bilbao when we're there.
I like the option of A, please, mate, to be honest with you. I reckon we go through France and we drink lovely red wine, we eat cheese, and we make a full week as we build up towards the European final. Hopefully there'll be a French team involved and an English team, but we can chat to some of those players en route and do it that way, Coley. So I like the idea of option A, given the fact that it's roomy, reliable, and everything like that, mate. Let's clock up the miles.
Yes, Ben, and when I'm driving, you can be using the voice-activated controls to open the sunroof because it's going to be sunny through France and Spain, expecting. And we can listen to the podcast on the awesome sound system it's got. So yeah, there's going to be loads of things that we can do in the car to keep ourselves entertained when we're driving down there.
Sounds good, mate. Let's take option A. We'll look into that. And if you're interested, please go to jq.co.uk to have a look and find your nearest dealer. So Bath beat Lyon 34-12, Coley, in the Challenge Cup. That was played on Friday night. Convincing, to be fair. Bath sort of flexed their power. I thought their bench that came on were very impressive. But overall, just, yeah, in control of the game, like even from early stages. Lyon didn't offer too much, if I'm honest. And it was job well done. Really good crowd, plenty of Bath fans in there. But yeah, job well done. Like I say, I think that was pretty convincing, to be fair, from Bath.
It was. Watching the game, Bath played the game we are used to. They're very good getting out on their own half, whether it's Ben Spencer's boot that can kick it a mile accurately, or Finn Russell banging in behind and the guys chasing. So they get to the opposition, any discipline, ill discipline from the opposition, Bath punish. I think, they have lots of moves off back of line outs, and when they get 5 yards out, they are deadly in regards to the pick and go game. Barno scored, and Dunn scored, sort of tap and go and that kind of stuff. So yeah, Bath, credit to them. They played. I think the way they play is set up to play in finals, those sort of tense games, build a score, and then they've got a bench to unload. Lyon were probably looking to make the game loose and thrown around, and essentially they played some quite. I love watching the French teams play. The offloading ability.
Well, when they got going, they offloaded and they looked really good, but it was just almost, they looked their best right at the end of the game, where it almost, the time was up. But they played for like another 4 minutes, and they just kept offloading and doing all that. And when they get going, like they are good to watch. But ultimately, Bath power. I got asked though, Coley. I thought you couldn't pre-latch because the try that was off the tap, like Tom Dunn obviously runs, and I think Charlie Yules is like latched onto him already. So it's like what you're creating 4 legs instead of 2 by the time the contacts hit. I didn't think you were allowed to do that in the game anymore.
Good spot, Ben.
I saw it a lot, mate, to be fair. I saw it a lot and I thought, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that in the game anymore.
You're not allowed to pre-latch, but I can't remember if pre-latching is before the ball carriers pick the ball up. Because I used to get it at the pick and go area, didn't you, where guys would basically, you'd build like, you'd have one guy behind, one guy beside you, latched on already, you'd pick the ball up and you basically get shunted over the line. But yeah, I don't know whether that's different, whether, say, I'm carrying the ball and you can latch me and we're not in contact, because I thought they tried to change it to post-contact, but I could be totally mistaken. Whether it just applies to where the ball's on the floor and you can't pre-latch when the ball is dead, so to speak.
I've got to say, yeah, credit to Bath. And actually that system where you don't make your pool, when you don't get out of your pool, when you actually drop into that Challenge Cup, I actually think that works very well. I think it's good. I think, the more that the more quality that you can keep within that competition, the better. And Bath have been pretty prolific, to be fair.
Bath had to overcome some adversity in that game. They had yellow cards and stuff like that. So
yes,
credit to them. They stuck to their guns and they managed those periods really well. You look at the way Bath, I think, when Underhill's yellow carded, Bath would take all the heat out of the game. They keep the ball off the field. If they got a penalty, they then walk slowly to the line out, get it, maul it, take time. And Bath's just game management seems to be, they're very classy and they're almost a step ahead of everyone else in regards to how they just manage those periods. Situational football in regards to exiting your own half, yellow card periods and 22 attack goal line. Bath are brilliant at it. And I think, they're obviously showing why, hence why they're top of the Premiership, and B, they're winning these trophies because they just know how to, everyone knows what they're doing. And it's really, it's fascinating to see.
Yeah. Overall reflection of Europe though, Coley, as a whole, when you look at the semis and the finals, they've been terrific. The last 16 and sort of the quarters, not bad. But I still feel like the pool stages need sorting out. I still don't think that's quite married up. It's like the latter part of the competition is very, very good. The beginning part, I still don't think it's quite nailed yet, how it used to be. When I think of the years of the great European rugby sort of back-to-back games you'd have and the way it was done, I'm not sure quite getting that bit right.
I really enjoyed the semis and the finals. I think, there've been some great games. I think, pool stages, I would love to see it go back in my day when you had 4 teams, basically play back-to-back games, you play 3 games, because everyone goes hard for those games. I think this year you've seen some South African teams have sent up totally rotated squads. Other teams have rotated their teams in Europe and played sort of bomb squad, so to speak. And it's sort of, it's not great. And also, the last 16, the quarterfinals, the bit before the quarterfinals, some of those teams are, for me, there's not the obvious path of, right, if we win our group and maximise it, we're number 1 seed. If we don't, we're 2, because you're playing against teams that are in different groups and that kind of stuff. So it's, I don't like the format of Europe at the beginning part, but I think at the end it's been proven there's some brilliant games. I just want to see these brilliant games throughout the tournament, so to speak, with full strength teams going fully at it, because that's what makes Europe special, is the fact that you get these matchups that don't happen every year. They're almost one-off games, and you get the best players in the world going against each other. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the last part of Europe, but as a fan, I'd think the first part could be rejigged.
And talking of rejigging, Coley, have you seen about the Club World Cup? So this will be every 4 years. It's starting in 2028. 8 teams will qualify through the Champions Cup. There'll be 7 Super Rugby teams and 1 from Japan. I would say that seems a little bit easier to qualify via Super Rugby, as there's only 11 teams in that competition.
I've noticed this has snuck in, this Club World Cup, under my radar, but I've been drawn attention to it. Obviously, on a European weekend, I've been more interested in the actual rugby. But yes, this news obviously been announced because I guess EPCR are hosting it or running it. It's Club World Cups on paper sound really good. My personal view, again, if teams can't put out full strength teams in Europe,
exactly,
with extra games in the Club World Cup, that kind of stuff. Yes, it sounds great. When's it going to be played in the season? Where's it going to be played? As you say, so we've got 7 Super Rugby teams, and there's 11 Super Rugby teams total, so 7 of them are going to qualify. Are all those 7 Super Rugby teams that good? You know what I mean? At least Europe, the top 8, you've got, well, that would be, how many is that? 4 French teams.
If you did it on the base of this year, Cole, I've got it here in front of me, there'd be 4 French teams, there'd be 4 New Zealand teams, there'd be 2 Irish, there'd be 2 Australian, there'd be 1 English, 1 Scottish, and 1 Japanese. And Moana Pacifica, who are technically another New Zealand side, really. So that's how it would be right now. So you'd be watching like Bordeaux and Toulouse against New Zealand teams. That for me would be fantastic. But you're right, Coley. It's how does it fit into the window of like your top 14 and things like that. And I think the issue won't be for Super Rugby teams because they don't have as many games and everything like that. It won't be an issue for the Japanese team. I think it'll be more an issue for European teams in terms of making sure that they can go fully loaded in that period.
Like you could win Europe 3 years on the bounce, say, and then what happens if you have an absolute stinker in 2028 and you don't get qualified for it? Like, it's just a bit like, I've so many questions about it, Ben. It could be really awesome, but until I see it and I see more stuff and where it fits, and whether it's just more games, sake of more games for players in Europe, Northern Hemisphere who play a lot of rugby anyway, I don't know. I just don't know. And the commercial gain from it, obviously there should be a commercial gain, but is that just going to benefit the teams that qualify for it once every 4 years? Or is it going to be all teams in the Premiership and the URC and all these teams? I don't know. Loads of questions. It'd be interesting to see, but ultimately I'd quite like to watch Bordeaux versus whoever wins the Super Rugby for club champion of the world. That's the game I need to see. I don't need to see 14 other teams trying to get that title.
It is a fantastic concept. Let's see how it unfolds. We need to know a little bit more about it to sort of dot the I's and cross the T's and see a bit more. Like, does it replace Europe and all those things? Is it just that when it slots into that, when does it fit? How does it fit? Where's it going to be played? And all these questions. But in theory, like you say, Coley, the thought of Toulouse and Bordeaux going against the top couple of teams in Super Rugby would be terrific. So let's see how it unfolds. We'll keep you posted, listeners, as soon as we know more.
Right. I think that draws to a close our For the Love of European Rugby, Ben, for another season.
It does. That's the finish. So big thanks to JQ, official automotive partners of the Investec Champions Cup and EPCR Challenge Cup.
And make sure you're following the podcast on Spotify and Apple, because tomorrow we might have a special episode.
And hit the subscribe button on YouTube if that is where you're watching. Thank you very much.